Now, the recent spate of killings has made prominent Nigerians call for self-defense in the face of rising insecurity, which signifies an outright vote of no confidence in the government and the security agencies. Former Minister of Defense Lieutenant General Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma, retired, recently called on Nigerians to defend themselves against the bandits and terrorists running amok across the country and living in their wake tears, sorrow and blood. While speaking in his community, Takum, Taraba State, Danjuma said, and I quote, "If government security cannot protect us, we must protect ourselves. Nigeria is on the brink." End of quote. Well, as Nigeria grapples with escalating security challenges, the role of indigenous defense contractors has never been more critical. Joining us on the show to discuss ways to go about bolstering our defense system in Nigeria to tackle the issue of insecurity is Ibrahim Garba, a security expert and an advocate for Nigeria's defense industrialization. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on.
Good morning, Mr. Garba. Thank you for joining us. Well, very quickly, earlier today, we discussed the Minister of Defense saying, well, government is doing very well, the military establishment is doing very well in protecting Nigeria and facing the challenges of insurgency, terrorism, and all that. Do you agree with him? And then, of course, this issue about self-defense. General Danjuma has been very consistent in saying, look, self-defense is the option. Other persons have also echoed them, saying that people should take up arms and defend themselves. Is that the way to go? What, in your opinion, can be done?
So, first of all, I will like to acknowledge the fact that there is an issue. And the issues are obvious to all of us locally and internationally, and everybody agrees on that, agrees to that. The challenge is, how will this issue be resolved? We've lost a lot of opportunities in the past, and the former Minister of Defense is an authority on this subject. But I do not know if, to what extent, his position takes into consideration the recent efforts that has been made towards resolving the issues. In the last few administrations, we've seen all kinds of efforts made. We've seen budgets for the acquisition of military equipment and hardware rise year by year. I personally, along with other defense contractors and companies, have struggled to, we've seen this gap for a long time, and we've struggled to participate. But this administration has given us the opportunity to actually get involved from a realistic perspective. I mean, in the past, it's been lip service, it's been writing in the papers. But with the coming of this administration, we saw the new DICON Act, which enabled a company like ours to an organization like ours to join hands with organizations like DICON to work together to bring about solutions that are practical and sustainable. So I agree, I acknowledge that yes, there are challenges, but I also would like to say that a lot is being done to deal with these issues, and we're actually taking active part in the solutions that this government has put on the table.
All right, thank you very much. In his briefing yesterday, the Minister of Defense alluded to the fact that this particular war against insecurity was almost like guerrilla warfare. However, he also touched on the fact that there'd been reports in the House of Representatives that some of these terrorists actually have more sophisticated weaponry than the army, and he spoke to debunk that. However, he also shared that out of the 53 companies in the DICON, 10 are locally producing some of these sophisticated drones. Can you tell us a little bit more about the sophisticated weaponry that's being created domestically? I know you probably can't go into too much detail, but to the best of your ability.
Okay, so I agree with him that quite a lot has been done. We've seen some significant gains in the amount of capacity that has been developed locally. I'm happy to say that some of the things that we actually used to import are currently being done locally. And by the end of this year, we will even see more. So this is really something to be proud of as a country. I mean, we really have to be proud of this. Having said this, there's still plenty of room for improvement. And the minister, through DICON and direct efforts of the chiefs and everybody, are really doing what they should do to create the environment. Even the state governments, many of the stakeholders, I mean, they're putting all kinds of models and policies in place. Sometime this week, I think it was Monday, we woke up to the news that at a FEC meeting, the Nigeria First policy was signed into law. All these are definite, tangible efforts that will bring about the changes that we need to see. The defense contractors need an environment, an enabling environment to be able to build our trade. Sources of finance, I mean, defense is very expensive. Defense manufacturing is very expensive. But local contractors do not have access to finance, sort of like the way the oil and gas industries have. When we go to the banks, I mean, many bank policies are not exactly favorable to the manufacturing of defense products. So this has been a challenge that has stunted the growth of the industry. But with the policies that we're seeing in place now, we are optimistic that the issues of making funding available to the defense contractors and defense manufacturers is also being looked at.
Okay. I'll ask you this real quickly.
And this will give us a level.
Okay, yes. Go ahead. Just finish that phrase or clause, but I'll ask you something quickly.
Yes. Okay. So due to the nature of the environment that the government, this current government is putting in place, which is enabling, we will get the advantage. Companies like ours and contractors will get the advantage we will have an advantage because prior to this period, we've had an unlevel playing ground. Many of the foreign contractors who currently get contracts in Nigeria and are doing projects in Nigeria have state backings from their individual countries.
Okay.
So they're able to come into our markets and operate with some backing that we don't have. Okay.
We've had sort of like a military-industrial complex going on in Nigeria for a couple of years because we've had situations of, conflicts going on for a while. I personally would have thought that should feed into the funds, military contractors like you in Nigeria will get. So has that really fed into the funds? Have they funneled some of those funds to you guys to be able to onward do productions for them? And in areas of comparative advantage, can you mention some of the things that you guys can produce locally that they still give to foreign contractors that you're not happy about?
Okay, so reference to the funding issue, I think that the funding challenge has not been addressed holistically. I would want to say that. It hasn't been addressed holistically. However, I'm aware that there are steps being taken. But beyond the steps that are being taken with things like government funding for DICON and things like that, I think we need to go further to create a Nigerian defense fund. It's quite similar to the way it's been done in the oil and gas industry. Our defense industry is as critical as our oil and gas industry. As a matter of fact, we need to rely on our own defense industry to protect and secure our resources within the oil and gas industry. So one of the things that needs to be done to move forward quickly is to establish a Nigerian defense fund that defense contractors could key into without putting pressure on the banks. So that is not in place at the moment, which you will agree with me is a major stumbling block to sustainable growth.
The second question.
These manufacturing exercises.
Because of time, the second question I asked you, the first question, I wasn't satisfied about the answer because all I just asked for you is, would you say the military-industrial complex built up by the successive fights against Boko Haram over the years, has it trickled down? Can you see some of the funding? That was the first question I asked. But the second question I'm asking is, what are some of those things you guys can produce locally that they still give to foreign contractors to supply for them in the military that you are not happy about? Some of those equipments.
Okay, so we have manufacturers who can produce armored personnel carriers, MRAPs. So these are the military vehicles that are used to protect troops. We have manufacturers who can produce ballistic equipment, personal ballistic equipment for troops. So those include things like bulletproof vests and helmets. There are people here who can actually manufacture those things to very good in local international to meet international standards. We have capacity to do ammunition locally. DICON itself has ammunition lines which are already existing. There are all kinds of capabilities, including the drones. And then not just, our industry is not just restricted to manufacturing of physical products. There's also training capabilities. A lot of our training is outsourced to foreign countries. We have the capacity to develop the training infrastructure that is required locally to reduce the cost of tickets, travel, tuition that is required to offer tactical training abroad because of the lack of tactical training infrastructure.
Okay, Mr. Garba.
So we need to get more tactical training infrastructure locally. Yes, sir.
Well, in any case, Mr. Garba, as we speak, the Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Matawale, is in China. They just signed, a memorandum of understanding, DICON and a Chinese firm, to manufacture advanced anti-terrorism weapons for Nigeria. But in any case, just to balance the story and say that we're still going to the Chinese to beg for support in terms of manufacturing. Thank you. Thank you very much.